Python coders. And in this particular video, coders in general. So yesterday, I was working on a fairly complex Minecraft project, and I was taking a break. And I decided I would sit there and scroll through TikTok for a while, just to see what was out there. And I came across a video where a gentleman was working at a local convenience store chain. And I saw the shirt he was wearing, so normally I think I probably would have just scrolled right past it, but I decided I would take and listen to what he had to say. And he was doing one of those "Today I quit my job" videos. And he made a big dramatic scene out of it. I guess it could have been a lot worse, and he was like, well, bleep these people, and he was holding up the shirt and he threw the shirt and he was ranting and raving about everything that had gone on at that location for the last 4+ years, I guess. And that's what inspired this video because I was sitting there listening to this guy, and the first thing that comes to my mind is, well, first off, dude, who cares? I understand that your job may not have been stellar, but why go on a social media platform and lament or rant and rave, if you're unfamiliar with the term lament, about why you had to quit this job in such an extraordinary fashion? In my 22 years of working in information technology, I have seen some interesting things. About the worst thing I saw for somebody quitting their job, well, there's two incidences basically. One was the guy just did not come into work. Um, they tried to get a hold of him, and they finally did, and he said, I'm not coming back. You guys suck. I'm sick of this crap. I've had it with this. I quit. The second one was very early on in my career. There was a lady who our boss decided one day that he was going to come down on her pretty hard for some inactivity, and she burst into tears. She came screaming out of his office, ran down. Her cubicle was actually right next to mine across the aisle, and she ran in there, grabbed the phone, called her husband, and said, she's bawling her eyes out, by the way. And she said, I'm coming home. I'm done. I never want to come back to this place again. Now, let me start this out by saying I understand when people get frustrated at their job. I've been doing this 22 years. There are days where, and there have been days where I have been just as frustrated as these people. However, I tend to take a very different approach on how to handle it. Number one, I don't complain. I'm not going to go on social media, and I do not recommend that you go onto social media and start doing a long rant and rave about why your job sucks, for lack of a better word. And if you're going to quit the job, which quitting a job is not a crime, people quit jobs and go to other jobs all the time. But if you're going to do that, you should do that in a proper fashion. It all goes back to a very simple concept called personal responsibility. And what personal responsibility has always meant to me is you don't always have control over what life throws at you. You can be driving home from work, driving to get groceries, driving to work, driving anywhere. You can get a flat tire. Now, how you handle that situation is far more important than the actual situation itself. And it's just one of those things that as you enter into adulthood, or you've been an adult for a longer period of time, like I'm in my mid 40s, so I've been an adult for a while now, you just come to realize that you just don't have control over everything. But there is one particular thing that you as an individual have absolute control over, and that is how you react to the situations that get thrown to you in life. Now, this guy that made this TikTok video, to me, this is one of the poorest handlings of wanting to leave a job that I have ever seen. I understand that, maybe you weren't being paid enough because he was complaining about the wage and he said, I'm barely making above minimum wage and I'm doing this and this and this. That's fine. Get a different job. You don't go on social media. You don't react, is what the main point that I am trying to stress is in a situation like that, the worst thing that you can do is react. Because as soon as you react, you're going to do something very, very stupid. If you take personal responsibility for the situation you're in, you will not become, or better, you will stop becoming reactionary. What you do in that type of a situation is you look for a different job. And then once you find a different job, you go into your current employer and you say, I'm putting in my 2 weeks notice. You don't have to explain to them under any circumstances why you're putting in a 2 weeks notice. If they ask, you can say, I found something better. Everything is very relative. One person's terrible job can be another person's blessing. Maybe somebody didn't have a job. And so the money that they're earning from that job is critical for them, or they're just grateful to be there. But I can tell you this, if you sit there and complain about it and you lament about it, you are not going to be doing yourself any favors, especially if you go on social media about it, because what's going to happen is you never know who a prospective employer is going to be. If you go on social media like that and you start ranting and raving and saying, hey, my job sucks, and here's why, they might find that. You never know who's scrolling through Facebook or TikTok or anything like that. And they may look at it and go, this guy's a whiner. I think we're going to bypass him. And you may apply to somewhere. You come in for an interview. The guy sitting there says, I recognize this guy. I saw this post on social media and says, the interview might go well. He's not going to come out and tell you, yeah, I saw your post about your previous job. I don't want you working here. What they're going to do is they're going to be polite. They're going to go through the interview process, and you'll hear back from them later on saying, well, we've decided not to, move forward with you. They don't have to tell you why, but the entire thing might be that they came across that post on social media and said, this guy's nuts. We don't want him working here. So my main point to you today is I understand that things can get difficult, but you are the one who is in full control about how you react to those situations. And if you raise up your awareness, I hate to use the word consciousness because then I start to sound like one of these new age people. But let me put it to you this way. If you raise your consciousness up a little bit and you start catching yourself reacting to those things, you can stop doing that. You can take a breath and you can say, okay, what would be the most sensible thing to do in this particular situation that I'm in? I have seen people stay at jobs because they say, well, I'm going to stay here because I can make a big difference. I can change everything. Well, in all reality, you're probably not going to make that big of an impact. Okay. Maybe staying at that particular place is not in your best interest. I've seen people stay at jobs because they absolutely do not want to be a job hopper. I worked with a gentleman that was like that. He stayed at our place because, well, I'm just not a job hopper. He was going to stay there until he did not have a job. And in his particular case, he's doing that because he feels that that is the most sensible thing to do for him. You don't have to worry about what anyone else is doing. All right. If you have coworkers that are working at a place and they're perfectly happy, that's fine. If you're not happy, then you're going to have to make a change. You're either going to have to change positions in that company. When I worked at one particular company, they had a slogan that they would use from time to time, which was the right seat on the right bus. In other words, just because that you might not be happy in one position doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to not be happy in another position. Maybe you're just in the wrong position. Maybe there's nothing wrong with you. It's just the position that you happen to be in. I worked with a PC tech, and he was fairly talented. Um, I liked the guy. He really wasn't abrasive. He was easy to work with. But for whatever reason, he just absolutely was not happy in that particular position he was in. He moved internally, not in IT. He moved out into the production facility and found a niche for himself. He found a position out there that he really, really loved. As far as I know, he's still there. So, the right seat on the right bus. But again, and I cannot stress this enough to you, I really can't. You absolutely do not want to go on social media, any form of social media, and start complaining about your current position. Because again, number one, it's not going to help you. You're just going to make yourself worse, and you're going to make yourself feel worse. The other half to that is you never know who's watching that social media post. A prospective employer could be looking at that and go, ooh, this guy's a complainer, and nobody likes a complainer. I can tell you this from 22 years of working in, bigger companies, smaller and bigger, but nobody likes a complainer, and it's going to come back to haunt you. So again, remember, you don't always control what life throws your way, but what you have full control over is how you react to those situations. So if you find yourself in a position where you're unhappy where you're at, make a change. And do it politely. Do it correctly. Do it in the most sensible fashion that you can think of. Always ask yourself, when you feel like you're stuck in that particular situation, sit down, take a breath, and say, okay, what is the most sensible thing that I can do right now? And the most sensible thing might be to leave the company, do it correctly, but leave the company and find yourself a different position. There's not a one size fits all answer for this because I'm not you. If you were to ask me, what would you do in this situation? I could tell you what I would do. And I could tell you what I think the most sensible thing to do is, but I'm not you. You have to make those decisions for yourself. So, but again, last but not least, please, please, please don't go on social media ranting and raving about those things because it may come back to haunt you in a very spectacular fashion. All right, everyone. Well, this is a quicker video for today. It's not really related to Qt, but just career advice in general. And other than that, happy coding.